These bearings have 1 season on them. Some look really good, some not so great. Stay tuned to this episode and I'll show you them up close and diagnose what I think happened to them. Welcome back to another episode of the Cunningham Custom Engines YouTube channel. I'm your host, Travis Cunningham, and this is episode 14. This week, we're going to talk about bearings. Going to continue on the teardown of Billy's engine, because it's the only engine I got on the go right now. And this is a pretty cool little series I've got going on, so we're going to talk bearings. It's one of the things that I always change when I rebuild an engine. That's definitely one thing you should always change. I have put some in, back in every now and again. Very rare in my career, but unlike everything else I've been teaching, this is definitely one thing I rarely reuse, and it's one thing that can tell you a lot about what's going on inside your engine when you're doing the teardown and diagnosis, once you get it back after a season or whenever you're done. This is the main bearing, and it looks pretty nice. It's had a full season on them, spread over 2 seasons, 8 and 8. Didn't race that much because of having a son, but the main bearing's definitely good. These had 2050 driven oil in it, GP1. And on the main bearings, these were set at about 3 thou clearance. That's where you always want to go. And these bearings definitely look like they just went around the block. When you take your bearings out of the engine, that's what you want to see. You don't want to see too much wear and tear on them. If you do, you definitely want to start cutting your oil filter apart and wondering what went wrong there. But on this engine, I could show you the rest, but they all look the same. The mains look real good. This is a standard set, and when you do mains, I don't know if you can see it here, but there's a little X right at the end of the part number, and if that X is there, you've got 1 thou more clearance over a standard set, and if there's no X, that just means it's normal. So sometimes you'll need an extra thou, and you got to get an X set. Now we're going to the rod bearing. This is funny. This is the one I still had my clearances on. This rod was set at 2 thou 4/10, and it was the cleanest engine, or it was the cleanest bearing in the whole engine. Like, that's what you want your rod bearings to look like after a season. Definitely beautiful. But like I showed you in the rod episode, I had some rod bearings in this one. It didn't look too great. Now, what's causing that? You'd initially think it was scoring the crank or something like that, but as you can see, there's no blue or no discoloration or nothing like that. And our engines run on methanol. So honestly, like, you should be changing your oil every race. That's how, if you have the money to do it, that's how you do it. Sometimes I push it 3 or 4. And that's probably why you're seeing this on some rod bearings, because it dilutes the oil with the methanol. And I run it a little fat as well. So that definitely doesn't help when it comes to looking at that. But also, this engine, I ran 8 races one season and 9 or 10 the next one. And I let it sit over the winter. So that also will have methanol in the oil. And it'll help cause this as well. And yeah, you definitely want your bearings to look a little cleaner than that when you take them out. Nothing makes you feel better than when you take an engine apart after 30 races and the bearings look like they just came out of the box. But when you don't see that, you definitely got to take a good look at them and wonder why it happened. And the rod bearings, these were set at 2.5 thou to 3 thou. And that's usually where I sent them. And 2050 oil. If you had tighter clearances, that's when the lower oil comes in. So don't just go throw in a lighter weight oil in your engine if you don't know what your bearing clearances are, because that's how you set them. If your clearances are 2 thou to 2.5 thou, that's when you want a 1030 to a 1040. But if you're setting them a little bit more open like mine, that's when you want a 2050. But there's a look inside the bearings. And like I said, usually you're going to replace these, reset them every year. Sometimes on the rear main, my one Eagle crank, the rear main is a thou smaller, so I have reused the main a lot. But look at this rear main in that engine. The rear main, for me, always comes out looking sweet. And the rear main bearings are bigger in a Ford, these will be in the middle, and I think in a Dodge too, the thrust. That's what sets your crank in play. Right there. Yeah, this is in the back on a Chevy, Ford in the middle. Forget where it is on a Mopar. But that's a look into bearings. All right, final verdict on what I think caused those rod bearing marks. Like I said, methanol, thinning out the oil. Our first race at Merrittville every year is always a super cold race. Last year it was like 7 degrees Canadian. I don't know what that is in American. Probably like 50 something, high 40s. Anyway, it was super cold. And so a cold start, we didn't have a heater on that engine. Dumb on our part. Didn't even have a block heater, so now we got those. So a little bit of a cold start. Could have been a piece of stuff that got in there. That engine also, we had to change a bent valve once and replace the head. So there's a lot of options that happened for that engine. The mains looked great, so it was just a rod bearing issue. Tell me what you think those marks look like. If you're an experienced engine builder, experienced teardowns, what do you think caused those? I wasn't not too worried about it, but definitely makes you open your eyes when you tear down an engine. I just wanted to show you one more thing about part numbers on bearings. I was talking about the X and the non-X. If you're ever ordering bearings, this is the kind of stuff you got to know, because there's all different journal sizes and stuff. This engine is 350 journals. A lot of sprint car engines, you can have a 327 journal, like the engine that's in the car right now, the new one, has 327 rod journals and 350 mains. And there's also Honda rods, and some 410s I know can have 400 mains, so that's a little bigger main bearing or main journal size. And I've even seen on a 358, like they go smaller. Like I think the one we built was BMW rod, and I don't know what the main was, but it was smaller than a 350. But these are 350 part numbers. MS909HX or MS909H. Have those memorized in the back of my hand, and then I was talking about the X's. So that's all the difference right there. An X at the end of the part number. So these bearings here will have 1 thou more clearance than these ones. So if you put these style in and you only got 2 thou clearance, you're going to be wanting to order up an HX. Sometimes you'll have to switch them. You'll have to order 2 sets. Like the tops will have an HX and the lowers will have an H on the mains and rods. And if you care about your customers and you're building stuff for your own, you don't want any problems, this is the kind of stuff you have to do on every engine. Don't just mic one and set the rest on that, because that's how you have problems. And then just to show you the difference in the part numbers on the rod bearings. This is your standard CB663HN. So these don't have the extra thou clearance on the rods. So that's a 350 journal part number. That one's 327 journal. So that's a 2-inch journal. This is a 2-inch 100 journal. And I even have a set of the Hondas here too. So those two would have been normal clearance, and then this one's a Honda CB1663HX. So those got the extra thou clearance on the Honda rods. So yeah, bearings, you better know your part numbers when you're ordering. But once you know that sprint car engines only really use those part numbers that I showed you, it gets a little easier. But that's the difference in bearings, the 1 thou clearance. And like sometimes if you wreck a crank or hurt a crank, you can get the crank turned down, and then you got to use, that's a -10. So that's 10 thou smaller. And that's where you can really screw up. I built an engine, and I didn't realize the crank was turned, so I put the normal rods on, the rod bearings in, and then I realized, oh shoot, that one's turned. And that one was only on 1 journal, so that was a tricky one. They only fixed 1 journal, so 1 journal on the crank was 10 thou smaller than the rest. So that could have been a huge screw up, but I found it before I screwed it up, and that's the bearing you need for that if you have journals that are turned down a bit. So now you know a little bit more about bearings and how you put them, what you do when they're new, the numbers on them, and how you look at them afterwards. And that's pretty much it for the bearing episode. All right, now that you've spent 10 minutes learning about bearings, gotta admit it's a little bit of a boring topic, but definitely important, especially when you're putting that together. Your bearing clearances are too tight and rods are coming out the bottom of the pan first night. But haven't opened that many NASCAR packs since that episode a couple months ago now where I opened them. I have opened 2 packs, and I want to show the 3 cards that I love that I found out of those 3 packs, and then we'll rip a couple more, maybe one more. Look at this one. Jimmy Horton. If you don't know about him, he's a Northeast dirt modified standout. As I said before, I work at Bicknell Racing Products. So Jimmy Horton's a super cool dude in our area. But a lot of people don't know he won 5 ARCA race super speedways in a row. And he had a pretty decent, like not a long NASCAR career, I mean. Didn't have that many too much good finishes on the NASCAR side, but he was there for a few full seasons. And when DW hurt himself, I forget where Darrell Waltrip hurt himself, but in 1990, Jimmy Horton, because he was on such a roll in ARCA, filled in for Darrell Waltrip in the Hendrick Tide 17. I think he finished 20th at Talladega. So he also won his first ever Silver Crown start, and I think he went one and done in that, which is also pretty cool. And in the Northeast area, in dirt racing, Jimmy Horton, definitely up there in godlike experience. Here's another one. I added him because I just heard a cool interview with his brother on the Scene Vault podcast. And this guy used to race a lot up against my dad's car at Delaware Speedway on the pavement in the early 80s. He used to come up when Delaware Speedway was rocking back in the day, when so many people from Michigan and the States would come over. So Tracy Leslie, he also won the 200 there one year. And the other one I thought was cool because I'm named after this guy, Travis Carter. My parents were trying to figure out what to name me. And car owner, I don't know if he was an owner at that time. He was a crew guy first, and then he ended up owning cars. But yeah, they heard this guy's name on a NASCAR broadcast. And now I'm named Travis Cunningham. So that's pretty cool. Now let's rip open a new pack. See what we get. Oh yeah. Thought about starting a card collecting hobby, but just ain't got that much time, you know? Everything's like gambling. Racing is gambling. Gambling is gambling. Buying cards is gambling. Billy Hagan. Jimmy McCarr. Ken Bouchard. Greg Sachs. Did a lot of the driving in Days of Thunder. Here's a goat. Harry Hyde. That's who they depict in Days of Thunder. The crew chief, Harry Hogg. This is who they're actually depicting, Harry Hyde. Larry McReynolds. Roll Tide. Not my favorite guy in the world, not gonna lie. Now here's a different one. Tim Brewer. Gray Rule Extraordinaire. He has so many awesome interviews on podcasts and on YouTube about beating rules back in the day. He's definitely one of my favorite crew chiefs. Bobby Hillen. Dickie Brooks. Todd Bodine, Chemung, New York. Bodine Bros. Ned Jarrett, Gentleman Ned, but I heard behind the scenes he wasn't as nice as everyone says he is on TV. Daryl Andrews. Ah, yes. One of the best drivers turned announcers ever, if you ask me. One of my announcing goats. And heroes, Benny Parsons. Look at that. Carburetor in a mill on the engine. James Luder. Never heard of him, but that's a Bridgeport and a carburetor in there getting worked on. That's a pretty cool little card. So I think we'll just do the one pack this week. And a little bit more bonus footage. I'm having Billy, Trevor, and Will over tomorrow on Sunday to work on the Oshweekend car. So for the first time, I'm going to get you to meet all them at once. All right, final clip. I finally remembered to set up the camera for shop day. And we got the beautiful Kirky seat all welded in. Or bolted in. Had to weld in a bar. But, meet the crew. This is Billy. What are we going to call him? Assistant crew chief, assistant car chief. Make sure the generator and four-wheeler have gas. And just all-around great guy. WCS drag racing winner. Don't forget that. That's your biggest claim to fame. And like I said before, all-around best car owner I've ever seen. And what else was I going to say? I forget. Anyway, this is grandson Trevor. He's new to the team. 2019 Junior 2 Go-Kart champion. And then retirement. Yeah. and then came out of retirement this year, and this year is going to be the tire boy. And we have official car chief, my boy Willis, and he hated dirt racing up until 2022, and then he came and watched us at Humberstone when he grew up just down the road from me, and then we alienated ourselves for a few years, and he saw me race at Humberstone when he thought dirt was dumb, and now he thinks dirt is not dumb, and he is so married into it, it's insane. Yeah.
Ready to rock.
So that's the crew. Billy, Trevor, Will, and Wayne.
He's not here, but
He's not here. Doesn't really come to shop day, but he's always at the track. And him and Billy are always sitting bird's eye view, and they're the two best at watching the car, that's for sure. They watch the car the best. They help me make the adjustments and stuff. Will's learning that, and Trevor's learning that. And that's it. All right, and that was the Rush Meet the Crew section. This is the driver in training, little Casey Bug. Say hi, Casey. Hi, bud. All right, so we met Billy, Trevor, and Will, and that brings the end to another episode of Cunningham Custom Engines. So if you like what you saw, like the videos, comment on the video, subscribe to the channel, and if I did anything wrong, leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought of those bearings and all that, and we'll see you next week.